Hello and welcome to the channel Windows versus Linux. In this video I want to take you through the process of creating what's called a Linux live environment bootable device. And basically what all that means is you're taking a version of Linux and either burning it to a CD or putting it on a flash drive so that you can boot into a test environment for Linux without affecting your system. And what this is really good for is just that, testing Linux before you actually install it on your system. So all of your files, all of your programs that you have now, your Windows installation is completely safe. This is just something that allows you to test drive Linux before you actually commit to installing it. And the distribution that we're going to be looking at is called Linux Mint. Now Linux Mint is a fork of another distribution, pretty much what's considered the distribution of Linux, the face of Linux, which is Ubuntu. And what Linux Mint is, the purpose behind its creation was to focus on creating something that people navigating from Windows would be the most comfortable with. If you've ever used Windows 7, which you may be using now, it is very similar to that. The layout is the same. You have a taskbar, you have desktop icons, you have a control panel. You have everything essentially that you would have in Windows 7, so it makes the transition into Linux very comfortable. So I'm going to be showing you how to create that bootable device either on a CD or on a flash drive. I'll walk you through the process of doing both, but I'll actually be showcasing it on a flash drive actually booting into Linux. So we'll jump to the desktop and we'll start going through that process. Okay, so here we are on our Windows 10 desktop. Again, this will be the same process if you were running Windows 7. So we will actually go online, and what we want to do first is install Linux Mint itself. So up here in the search bar, we're going to type linuxmint.com. Alright, and then just hit enter. And you will be taken to the Linux Mint homepage. You can go through this if you like. You can read the news that's more common. But we're actually going to hover over this download button up here, and you'll see different things beneath that. You'll see Linux Mint 19.1, which is the current version of Linux Mint. This LMDE3, this is basically, what this stands for is Linux Mint Debian Edition. Debian is another distribution of Linux. That's actually the parent of Ubuntu, so it's kind of, you can think of it as the grandfather of Linux Mint. And what this is basically a fallback if anything were to happen to Ubuntu. The Linux Mint development team has created this in case anything happens to normal Linux Mint, essentially. This all versions, you can install previous versions of Linux Mint if you so desire. You can read documentation, you can actually buy CDs already preloaded with Linux Mint if you so choose. But what we'll be doing today is just creating it from scratch, which is actually pretty simple. So the one we're going to want is this Linux Mint 19.1. So if we click on that, this is actually what it looks like. This is Linux Mint 19.1 as it comes default. That's just a screenshot. Again, you can read documentation, you can read release notes about it, but what we actually want is this section down here. Now Linux Mint does come in a few different flavors. First of all, you can download the 32-bit for, if you're running a machine that's pretty old, I would probably say 10 years or older, you probably will be running 32-bit, but any most modern laptop or desktop should be running 64-bit. Now in the section on the left, you have different flavors of Linux Mint. This XFCE version is designed to run on very low-end hardware. So again, if you have a pretty old system, this will actually be pretty convenient for you because it uses very low resources on the system. This Mate, now some people pronounce this Mate, but it's actually Mate in the Linux community. And this is, again, a pretty low resource version, but is a little bit more modern than the XFCE version. But the one I'll be showcasing is the Linux Mint Cinnamon Edition. This is probably the most standard version of Linux Mint. It's the most similar to Windows 7, and I'll be showcasing that on the 64-bit. So I'm going to click that. And these are all the download links, well, the download options, I guess. You can pick any one of these. If you're in US, you can pick that. If you're in another country, you can pick one of these links to download from. I'm just going to choose this one right here. And it's going to ask, what do you want to do with Linux? What do you want to do with this Linux Mint ISO? I want to save it. Alright, so that's going to go through and install. I will be back once that is fully installed. Okay, so now that we have our Linux Mint ISO image, we can close that. And the next thing we want to do, if you are wanting to install this on a CD, there is a program you want to download. And if you go to imgburn.com, hit enter. This is the program you'll want to use if you want to burn that ISO image to a CD. And from here you just go to the download link right here. And any one of these will download that file for you. I would recommend the one that's provided by ImageBurn itself, because that, I guess, is their official download link. So you would just click that, download it, and then run through the installation. I actually already have it installed, so I'll just cancel this and just show you what that looks like. So if I go to the desktop, this is the ImageBurn program right here. So we'll open that. And obviously you want a blank CD. The Linux Mint ISO file shouldn't be too big. You should be able to put it on, well, let me actually look and see how big it is. Go to downloads. Okay, so it is 1.83 gigabytes in size, so you might actually want to use a DVD, as DVDs have larger space on them. Usually your standard CD will only have 700 megabytes, which this won't cover, so you'll probably have to use a DVD instead. But that should work for you. So this is the actual ImageBurn software. So if you get your DVD and put it into your disk reader, you want to do write image file to disk. So you click on this, and this source, we want to search for that ISO image that we downloaded for Linux Mint. So we just click this little folder here, go to downloads, because that's where it downloaded to, and then Linux Mint Cinnamon right here. So click that, hit open. If you do have a DVD disk in your tray, this should be fine, the destination. You can change this, but it should be automatically defaulted to your DVD. And then I don't, but if you do, this will appear, this option here. You just click that, and it'll burn this image to that DVD, and then you'll be ready to boot into Linux Mint from that DVD. But like I said, I'm actually going to put this on a flash drive, so I'll close this, go back online. And if you want to do this on a flash drive, you'll want to type in Etcher, not Etcher.com, just Etcher, and hit enter. And this is actually the site you're looking for, this Balena Etcher Home. So we'll click that. So this is the program you would use to put Linux Mint on a flash drive. So again, you can change what you want to download it for. They have it for Linux, they have it for Mac OS. They even have a portable version for Windows, but I'm just going to leave it on the default here. So I'm going to download for Windows, and I'm going to run that installation. So this shouldn't take too long. I'll just speed this process up, and I'll see you on the other side. Alright, so it is installed, so we'll just minimize this. And here is the installation. So we'll hit I agree, and it will go through and install that program. Now, again, you will want a flash drive that is at least the size, if not a little bit more than the size of your Linux Mint file. So I would say even a 2 gigabyte flash drive would work. If you have a 4, that would probably be preferable. So this is the Etcher program. So I'll go ahead and plug in the flash drive that I'm going to use. and you can see here that it automatically selects that flash drive. Okay, it is blank. This program should format the flash drive for you if there is something on it, but mine is already formatted. So right here we just hit select image, downloads, choose our Linux Mint file. Again, it's already automatically selected my flash drive, so all we have to do is hit flash, approve it, and it says starting here, so it will go through and burn that Linux Mint file to the flash drive. So I will let that run, and I will see you once that's finished. Okay, I've moved the camera behind my screen so you can actually see this process that we're going to be doing. Etcher has finished burning Linux Mint to my flash drive, and then it unmounted the flash drive. So if you're putting Linux Mint on a flash drive, you'll probably have to unplug it and then plug it back in to do what we're about to do. But just quickly, I'll show you that my flash drive is plugged in and there is something on it. This is Linux Mint 64. So essentially what you want to do is restart the computer and boot into your boot menu. Now what a boot menu is it's a menu that you can select the source to boot the computer into. So if you've done this on a CD, you can tell the computer, hey, I want to boot into my CD or DVD rather than my hard drive. Or in our case, we want to boot into our flash drive instead of our hard drive. And the way to access that menu is different for every computer, unfortunately, so you'll have to do a little bit of trial and error to figure that out. The most common keys to get into that are the escape key, F2, F9, or sometimes it can be F10, F11. On my computer it's F12, so that's the one I'll be hitting. Sometimes it's the delete key. And like I said, unfortunately you just have to do trial and error until you figure out which key that is. If you happen to miss it and it wants to start booting into Windows, you just press and hold the power button until everything shuts off, restart it, and then just try a different key. So in our case, like I said, it's F12, so I'm going to restart, and pretty much as soon as the screen goes black, that's when you want to start hitting that key. Alright, so I'll start hitting F12, and here's our boot menu. Now, sometimes when you boot up your computer, it'll actually tell you, if you're quick enough to see it, which key to press to get to the boot menu. Sometimes it'll even tell you which key to press to get into your BIOS. So if your computer has that feature, if you're quick enough, you can actually see it and it'll actually tell you. But like I said, most of the time you'll just have to trial and error. So this is the screen you want to see. It's your boot menu. You can boot into your normal hard drive. You can boot into your internet if you so choose. You can boot into, this is my DVD drive, but the one I'm interested in is this top one, which is USB Cruiser Glide, which is my flash drive. So I'll hit enter, and as you can see, it's going to automatically boot into Linux Mint. And like I said, this is just what's called a live environment. So any changes you make inside this will not affect your normal Windows 10 or Windows 7 installation. All your files, all your programs, your Windows will be completely fine. So once you're booted into this, if you restart, you just unplug your flash drive or pull out that disk, and it'll boot directly into your Windows again with all of your stuff untouched. Alright. So here we are at Linux Mint. Again, this is very similar to Windows 7. You have desktop, you have desktop icons, you have a taskbar down here at the bottom. You have a start menu, very similar to 7. You have a control panel where all of your settings reside. So in the next video, we're actually going to be walking through a tour of Linux Mint, and I'll show you how to do different things. I'll show you similarities between this and Windows 7 and things like that. So stay tuned for that video, and I'll see you then. Thank you.